Our market really began to change about 2 weeks ago, and what I want to do today is unpack where we're at right now. I want us to look at some fresh stats. I have some brand new graphs and visuals as of this morning. I want us to walk through sort of some appraisal stuff that's been happening in the market and talk through. I think that'll be helpful. And then I want to close with some tips and some things that I've been seeing out there. And so this will be about 15 minutes or so. This is Ryan with SacramentoAppraisalBlog.com, and let's jump in together. Here are canceled listings in the Sacramento region. There's been a huge spike over the past 2 weeks. Interestingly enough, this week there were about 30 less canceled listings compared to the previous week, and so that's something to watch. We'll see if there's less canceled listings or more in the future, but definitely less this past week. Here's properties with the hold status. These are properties that have been removed from the market. They're not technically canceled yet. They're just not being actively marketed. There's been a huge spike, but when considering the past 7 days versus the previous 7 days, it's been about the same number of holds. And so there was an initial spike around March 12th, through 14th or so, through the 20th, but it's since sort of subsided a little. Okay, so definitely something to watch. Keep in mind there are 285 canceled and hold listings this week over the past 7 days, and so that's a pretty significant number considering there's about 2,900 listings on the market. And so basically, there would be about 10% more listings had these ones not gone on hold status or canceled. So very significant. Here's new listings in the region by the week since January. You can see there's this rhythm where there's, depending on the day of the week, they go up and down. And usually the high point is Thursday or Friday. But you can see that clearly there's been less listings over the past 2 weeks. Okay, sort of when the market began to change, and then, there's less new listings on the market. In fact, there's 34% less listings over the past 7 days compared to 2 weeks ago. So this is significant to watch, and clearly it's a sign that some sellers are choosing not to list their homes. I mean, duh, right? In a pandemic. There's a lot less, I think, motive for people to put their homes on the market because they're sort of putting life on pause. All right. Here's pending sales in the Sacramento region week by week through January, and you can see over the past couple weeks, there's definitely been a definitive downward trend. Okay, I would say this is a new trend. Clearly, we have something else going on here compared to the trend where there were more pendings. Okay, there should be more and more pendings, for months onward, but that's not what we're experiencing right now. Now, a lot of people say, well, it's just a lockdown, and the lockdown is affecting the real estate market, and I 100% agree that the lockdown or sheltering in place is affecting things. But look at this. That happened on the 20th of March right here. Okay, we already had a trend of declining pendings before, and so I would say that the trend started to change when, as soon as news of Tom Hanks broke out and the NBA canceled its season, and people began to really kick things into high gear with social distancing. And so this trend that we're experiencing is about the lockdown, but it's about the uncertainty in the market. It's about the pandemic, and so let's not just blame the lockdown. Okay, here's pending contracts over the past few weeks. 341 over the past 7 days. And this is down over the past 2 weeks by 42%. And so there's been a very significant change in the market. And someone said to me this week, hey, it's going to be a while till we have sales data. I totally agree. But they say that appraisers don't have real data right now. I'd say that's absolutely false. We don't have a lot of sales happening since the pandemic occurred, but we have pendings, and we can see this clear trend that's happening in the market. And it's tempting to say, well, this market's artificial though. This isn't real. This is artificial data. I would say, no, no, no. This is real data, and it's a real market. Okay, I wouldn't say that there is such a thing as artificial data. I will say and recognize that yes, there's this thing that's being imposed on the market, this lockdown, and this pandemic is making the market really slow, but this is actually the market that we actually have in front of us. Okay, then conditions can change in the future, but here is our trend and here is our data. We don't have to wait until we get sales to see what's happening in the market. Okay, important appraisal stuff. Let me blow through some of this stuff quickly. Inspections have been changing. I know everyone's been hearing a lot about this. I've been really glad to see a lot of lenders and banks stepping up to temporarily change the way they're doing things to say, hey, appraisers, we want you to focus on more exterior products, on desktop products. In some cases, they want, appraisers to, do a drive-by or an exterior, but maybe try to get more information through FaceTime or have the owner share photos and such. And so I was particularly relieved to see that appraisers are not going to be going inside for FHA reverse mortgages, okay, that protects an elderly population. And so that's a good thing. But there's a lot of interior still being ordered. And so we're going to have to see how this shakes out over time. I will say that it's normal to see, quote, low, unquote, appraisals when a market changes. And so it's easy to dog appraisers to say, these appraisers aren't doing their job. They don't know what they're doing. But when a market changes, oftentimes appraisers are aware and in tune with changes. Like we're sensing that okay, there's something going on with pendings, and we've seen 42% less pendings. The market has begun to change, and sometimes that's actually reflected in appraisals, and that's why we see more low appraisals. Okay, this is very normal. It's how it should be when a market changes. Okay, contract date versus appraisal date, inspection date. This is really key because if you get into contract and a market's changing, what if the appraiser doesn't see the property for 10 or 12 days? Could your contract price still be valid? If you relisted on the market, would you get what was being asked for and what the buyer and seller agreed on? Maybe, maybe not. All right. Now, I'm not saying that prices are being dramatically affected right now, but there can be a difference when the appraiser actually gets out there. And so that's very important to recognize that value is about the date the appraiser inspects a property, not the date the property got into contract. All right, so appraisers do sometimes botch value, and I would readily admit that. No appraiser is perfect, and I know it's difficult when this happens, and it's frustrating, but it's one of the natures of real estate, one of the imperfections. Okay, there's no such thing as a perfect system. A lot of people say, well, we should just digitize everything. Well, the AVMs don't get it right either, okay? But at least, bringing in the human element is so powerful, but it does come with mistakes. Appraisers are also ahead of the curve at times. I think we have to recognize that when real estate can be very emotional when buying something. But you know what's not fun is to overpay and to have a fudged value and to have a heightened value, or to buy something and when there's an appraisal waiver, and then if the market declines in the future, it doesn't feel so good. Okay, and so when appraisers do bring something in low and recognize that, hey, there's no support for the contract price, it's sometimes good news for the buyer. All right. So I'd say that sellers need to negotiate. I would expect for more appraisals to be coming in lower these days, and negotiate. All right. It's harder to keep buyers, okay, on the line right now. And so you have to do whatever you can. And so sellers just need to recognize that they've lost some power recently. And it'd be very foolish, I think, to act like it's 2013 or act like even January and February, where the market was really aggressive this year. We don't have that aggressive feel anymore in the market, okay? We have lessening pendings. There's still 2,900 listings. And if pendings persist to go down, I mean, we'll see if that trend persists, then sellers are going to lose power, okay? The last thing is that appraisers should mention COVID-19. I had a couple questions from agents, friends, and saying, "Hey, why the heck did the appraiser mention coronavirus in their report? That just is not appropriate." But I would say it's highly appropriate. I would say to any colleague who is not mentioning COVID-19, I just ask why not? Okay, because this is something significant in the market that's happening right now. We're in the midst of a pandemic and there's uncertainty. And so I know in all my private appraisal reports, I've been very clear that the market is uncertain. And this is on the mind of buyers too. Okay, I'm working with a client right now, and she asked me over email yesterday. She said, as she splits assets with her partner, and she says, what about the future? I'm concerned if we split assets now, what's going to happen in the future? And so that just to values, and that's just a sign that yes, appraisers should be talking about this. It's on the minds of buyers. What's going to happen in the future market? How would the pandemic affect things, right? Closing thoughts: conditions change and the market will keep changing. Okay, we're not locked into one market trend right now. Trends are constantly moving. There's different layers to the market, and when one of the layers changes, it can change how the market feels or the trajectory of things, right? So imagine if mortgage rates went down to 1.5% today, right? Could that change the feel of the market? Yes, it probably could, even now. And so I would say let's expect change, but we need time to see how the market's going to unfold. Okay, this isn't being negative. Someone accused me of being negative and said, Ryan, stop with all the negativity. And I say, I am not being negative, and I'm the world's, greatest optimist, right? I am so optimistic in life, but I'm very real about market stats. I am sharing market facts. This isn't negative at all. I would say to adapt your narrative. All right. In real estate, I think it's been commonplace to be very positive and say, the market's up, things are looking great. But that sort of narrative doesn't work today because it doesn't reflect reality. And so, in whatever you're saying about the market, I would challenge you, if you work in real estate, make sure that conforms to actual trends. Okay. The danger of a positive narrative, though, is that it ignores buyers. It's very self-serving and it caters towards sellers. And what about the buyers, right? Sensationalism breaks down credibility. There's a lot of articles going around there, not even really mainstream media, but I would say there's a lot of investor websites and stuff that where everything is about the market crashing or unemployment, and doom and gloom in the future. And we have some really sincere issues on the horizon, especially the job market. But we're gonna have to see where that goes. But if every article you're sharing is sensational and then these things don't come to pass, then what it does is it destroys your credibility. And so that's something to watch for for anyone who works in real estate. I'd say it's still too early to gauge prices. Here's the thing. We need to watch prices, but the current pendings right now will start closing much more next month. And so we'll get a sense of where the market's at with pricing in about a month or so down the road or the next couple months. And so I'm not deliberately ignoring this. Because I have some sort of agenda. No, it's just I don't think the data is there yet. 46.7% of pendings this week had multiple offers. This is good to note because I think a lot of people think that the market has stopped, but no, the market is moving forward. Yes, pending contracts are down, but among the pending contracts, nearly half of them had more than one offer. And so it just shows that there are price segments that are competitive. And so buyers would be very foolish to think, hey, I'm going to get the deal of a century and offer $300,000 less, and I'm going to pay a penny for this property. We're not in that sort of market, okay? This isn't 2007 and 2008 right now, okay? And so I would say buyers offer for the market that actually exists. Know how competitive things really are by looking at what is moving, what's getting into contract, all right? And then you'll be able to gauge how much power you have in certain price ranges, okay? Don't just think that you have power over everything. No, you probably don't. I would say particularly under 400,000, the market's more aggressive there. Okay, the market is always more aggressive under the median price. Okay, half the sales in the market happen under about 425 right now. So of course that half the market's competing there. Watch jumbo loans and FICO scores. This is key because there's been a lot of conversation about non-qualified mortgage products going away, and the jumbo loans are part of that. And so, if the jumbo loans at the top of the market begin to, go away or they're gone, then that could certainly affect, the ability of buyers at higher price range to obtain financing. Okay, if FICO scores go up, the word on the street is that lenders have been raising FICO scores for FHA financing. Then this could really harm FHA. And so there's going to have to be other products that arise that compete with FHA or usurp FHA, but when loan products change, it's a layer of the market and it's something to really watch because it can squeeze some buyers out of the market And it can also create opportunity though for other products to emerge. Be cautious of daily stats. If you're sharing stats every day, remember the stats might not mean anything unless they have something to be compared to. Okay, and so some days I just did a video a few days ago to talk about this dynamic. Some days are more vibrant than others in terms of listings and pendings and such, and so just be really cautious and know sort of the daily rhythm. I'd say don't get stuck on March sales and prices. I've seen this mistake already in local media. There was a story, I won't mention the news source, but there was a real estate professional who was quoted saying that, March has been a strong month of sales volume so far. But here's the thing, most of the sales in March got into contract in February. Okay, in fact, about 2% of all sales right now that have actually closed in March got into contract after March 12th. And so we have very little sort of coronavirus, so to speak, data right now. Okay, and so that's why I don't want to look at March and then judge, what's been happening over the past couple weeks based on March sales, because that tells us about the past when these properties got into contract. And so I imagine this is going to be widespread, though. We'll see this all over the place. I would just recommend just don't let that be you, though. A couple more thoughts. This is a market to survive. I know this sounds a little doom and gloom, and it probably goes against everything that Tony Robbins would tell you, and all Brian Buffini and all these coaches. But I was reading Mike Del Prete a few weeks ago, and he talked about survival of the fittest, and talked about how this is probably more of a market to survive rather than thrive. Okay, there's less deals going around, and I would just say make it your goal to remain standing and then thrive later. Okay, that's very practical. I just think it's real though. I'm sorry if that messes with your vibe, but that's exactly what I'm thinking. And I'll be surprised then if things go really well. Okay, last but not least, I'd say be safe and cultivate peace. No matter what you're doing, no matter what is going on in real estate, the most important thing here in life is safety and relationships. Keep talking to people, log off social media, do whatever you need to do to have peace in your life. So I hope this was helpful. I'll keep doing this as long as you guys like it. If you did like this, give it a thumbs up. But otherwise, let's keep conversation going in the comments. Thanks.